Happy hump day, y'all. Happy Wednesday. I am seated. I generally like to be standing for these live streams, but apparently in my last live stream, there was some popping and some crackling and some audio issues toward the end of my live stream, which I think is very interesting because right before that, without any difference in setup, I had made a report for my other show, the BCP podcast, which you can catch at BCP Extras, and there were no issues with the sound there. Seems like wacky things sometimes happen when I do live streams on YouTube. I wonder why. All right, folks, let's get into the latest on what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. And please give me a thumbs up if the audio on your end is copacetic. If it sounds good, let me know if everything is going well on your end. Russia and Ukraine agreed to the Trump-brokered Black Sea deal and energy infrastructure ceasefire, but Moscow alerts some sanctions must be lifted first. And President Trump, wanting to be and being the president of peace and prosperity, is going to do that. So let's remember that this is not the first sort of deal that's been brokered. We had the one in 2002, 2003 in Turkey. And guess what? I guess the left is like talking about this because it breaks down their narrative about their hero Zelensky, but they didn't keep their side, and Europe also didn't keep their side of the deal. So it complicated things. But here we go. This is what we have. Yesterday, after a very meaningful round of technical level talks in Riyadh, the U.S. was able to reach separate deals with Russia and then Ukraine for a security deal in the Black Sea, as well as a temporary ceasefire in the attacks against energy and infrastructure targets. But to make that happen, the Trump team agreed to lift some sanctions against Moscow. Now, of course, I want to break this down. Welcome, Shadow Ops RC, to the BCP fan club. Thanks for your support and thanks for joining. What is President Trump and Team Trump willing to concede? Well, you know, the left is going to say, oh, this is once again President Trump bowing to Putin. And I still fail to understand how President Trump is both a authoritarian despot, but also Putin's bitch. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you can't have it both ways. How is President Trump, according to the left, this big, bad authoritarian figure, yet at the same time, he's taking orders from Elon Musk and Putin? Someone riddle me this. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, it's coming from the left. They're liars. They don't make sense. So what are these concessions? I want to be clear on this with you because this seems to be breaking as of this morning, and I anticipate there may be some fake news on this. What this is this is a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. And the biggest thing, because Europe needs this, they need, and we get a lot of our fertilizer as well from Russia and Ukraine, but they want to make sure that the maritime ways are open for the transport, for vessels to get out wheat and fertilizer. But there's a problem there. Some of the sanctions have to do with insurance and payment systems that allow for the payments of said vessels and the insurance of said vessels to be paid through the SWIFT system of payments. And because we've blocked them and sanctioned them from being able to access those payment systems and therefore pay the insurance and the cost for those vessels to move, that's all they're asking for. They're asking for sanctions to be lifted in the realm of them being able to have these vessels paid for and their insurance paid for through the same banking and payment system that they were using before. That's it. Wow, that sounds like a very evil concession from President Trump and his people. Just want to make that clear because you know how they lie. So that's where we're at right now. Quote, this is Reuters. While Russian exports of food and fertilizer are not subject to Western sanctions, Moscow has said restrictions on payment, logistics, and insurance have amounted to a barrier to shipments. Russia wants the reconnection of its state agricultural bank to the SWIFT international payment system. That and other steps could require agreement from European countries. So if this doesn't happen, if this Black Sea ceasefire doesn't go into effect, it's going to be because of Europe, not because of the United States, not because of Russia, but because of lack of cooperation from the warmongers in the West, not including the United States. Okay, so that's an important update. Now let me get into this very interesting thing we have. Folks, I love and appreciate every single one of you. There's a lot of important things I want to cover here, so I'm going to be boom, 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 going through these stories. Is that okay if I go rapid fire? If I usually within 15 to 20 minutes after these live streams, for those of you watching the replay, I do go back and watch the whole thing and timestamp it so you can zero in on the story that you want to hear. And if I'm speaking too fast or too slow for you, you can always manipulate the playback speed on these replays. Fair enough? Okay, we have evidence of what we already knew to be true. Joe Biden's former press secretary has admitted to how Biden would demand questions from reporters in advance. Now, we all knew this to be true. Do you remember when we saw back in 2023, we actually saw the screenshot. Joe Biden was wearing aviator glasses in a press conference, and some argued that he had an earpiece. And we got a glimpse of his note card. It had the name of the reporter. I'm looking at the photo here. So it had the name of the reporter. In this case, it was Courtney Subramanian. It had her name. It had a picture of her, who she was working for, which was Los Angeles Times. It had her picture, her name, who she worked for, what order the question was in, and even how to pronounce her last name. And then right below that was the exact question that she was going to ask him. So we've already known this to be true because we saw this with great photographers zeroing in and zooming in on it. But we have this. We have Michael LaRosa, Joe Biden's ex-press secretary. Now, we know in the past he has said that the White House was, in the recent past, I think a few weeks ago, he had admitted that the White House was gaslighting the public about Joe Biden's cognitive issues and what have you. But this is what he just said. He said this to Cenk Uygur over on the Young Turks. He goes in and tells them how he had to fight Biden's people, Joe Biden's press people, because they were trying to do the same thing for Jill Biden, but he had different rules. Of course, these leftists always have to make themselves out to be a hero, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But he pretty much said that he did not allow the press people to do to Jill Biden what they were doing to Joe Biden, and that he had people on his staff that were not allowing people to do interviews with Jill because these people were coming over from the Joe Biden camp and were under the MO that they would not even accept interviews unless they have the exact questions that were going to be asked before. So just further evidence, proof of what we already know to be true, that the last administration was a freaking joke. By the way, folks, I want to voice my appreciation and my love for every single one of you. You guys are freaking awesome. I read your comments in the replay. I go back and see your chat comments. I don't get to all the chat comments live because I'm a man. I'm not a woman. I'm not a very good multitasker. So if I focus a lot on the chat, then I lose my way or my train of thought or my flow. That being said, do look forward to me very soon doing a live stream where it's going to be more of a questions and answers, and I will be more into what you having to say in the chat. And I will give you advance notice when I do that particular type of live stream. It'll be very different, and I look forward to it. Big hug to all of y'all, and thank you for sticking with me over the last 5 years, plus many of you having been here a long time. We had a very rough time dealing with this regime that just got their asses kicked out of the White House January 20th, 2025, and it couldn't come soon enough because, man, are we still suffering from their ridiculousness. Now let's get into the latest. We have U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth. He is a Regan appointee, and he's obstructing President Trump's efforts to defund Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. So if you recall, we have over there Kari Lake. President Trump has gotten a mandate from America to cut out the fat, to stop the propagandizing, not only of America, but of the world with leftist globalist talking points, which is exactly what, Radio Free Europe and all of these Cold War programs are doing. That's what they're doing, folks. It's Cold War programs. And if these people that set this up in the 40s and 50s could see that now these same global programs that the U.S. is funding is being used to push Marxist ideology when they were originally set up to give news that was anti-socialist Marxist, they would be rolling in their graves, as would many of our grandpappies who fought to free the world of tyranny, many of them still among us, suffering, watching this tyranny that's being funded and forced to be funded, as we are seeing here. U.S. District Judge Lamberth has obstructed the Trump administration's effort to defund RFE and RL, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, a Cold War relic that continues to disseminate globalist narratives under the guise of independent journalism. This decision undermines the administration's mandate to eliminate wasteful spending on organizations that no longer serve America's interests. On March 15th, 2025, Kari Lake, serving as senior advisor to the acting CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, issued a letter terminating the federal grant for these two programs. The action was then followed by an executive order by President Trump aimed at reducing the operation of several agencies. Well, nope. This judge, once again, activist judges, whether most of them seem to be Obama, Clinton, and Biden appointees, but we have had some George W. and some Regan appointees as well jump in the mix to defend the status quo. The termination attempted to the termination attempt led to an immediate funding freeze of $7.5 million of invoices that were submitted on March 17th. They went unpaid, and now Judge Lamberth is issuing a temporary restraining order, effectively blocking Kari Lake and President Trump and ordering the agency that they cannot halt these payments, that the payments must go through. With friends like these, once again, who needs enemas? Okay, let's, I hope this is my last time reporting on this Jeffrey Goldberg and this Atlantic story and what's going on there. But I would tell you, someone who is emerging as a true, I know it's too soon to say 2028 mantle of President Trump, but JD Vance is showing that he's got the chops. Now, in full disclosure, when JD Vance was announced as President Trump's VP, he wasn't my first pick. He wasn't the person that I was like rooting for. So when I'm optimistic of JD Vance, and once again, cautiously optimistic, I don't think there's any really comparison between JD Vance and Mike Pence. But I think Mike Pence he did a damn good job as vice president until he did. Okay. Totally screwing up the end game. And ever since then, his TDS, and it's just ridiculous. It's almost like, is this the same guy that was a pretty good vice president? Now, I'm not saying that to say that JD Vance is going to disappoint us. I'm just saying it's very early. But the signs of JD Vance being a scrapper and smart and calculating like President Trump is becoming very apparent and evident every single day, every single week of this 47th administration. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. Let's not forget President Trump. I don't want to be morbid here, folks. I do not want to be morbid. I'm not being morbid here. Just a small reminder. President Trump is no spring chicken, though I don't think now that I'm 50, 78 doesn't seem that old anymore. And also, they're gunning for him. Whether it's possible ricin on the end of microphones or deep state, supposedly lone wolf shooters going out to him, President Trump is in danger. He's under continued danger. So we must be cognizant. We must be observant. We must be understanding that the role of the current vice president is very, and his character is very important for us to observe, because JD Vance, whether we like it or not, may be called on to fill the shoes of President Trump. That is why I think it's important that we zero in on him. I say all that to say this: as we get into what's coming out from this ridiculous Jeffrey Goldberg Atlantic article and the blowback and everything that's coming out of this, JD Vance is handling this great with not just aplomb, but he's just showing that he does have the chops. So the radical left reporter who started a national firestorm over leaking a Signal chat group of Trump administration officials and called a liar has now attempted to call their bluff. Okay. So what has happened is we now have the full transcript and screenshots of the conversation that took place. Now, let me remind you of what the original headline was from this Atlantic article from Jeffrey Goldberg. Quote, "The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bomb started falling." Well, if you now go over to the Atlantic, what do you think they've done? What do you think they've done? Have they redacted it? No. They're doing what they always do. They quietly change the title, the headline. They quietly change, some of the verbiage, some of the text, as if we wouldn't notice. Here is the new headline. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. It went from the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. So you're thinking, how the hell does that happen? And then we found out, it was through Signal that he didn't get a text. I mean, I know it's synonymous. My children will send me a message on Messenger or Signal or Instagram, and we go, "Oh, remember you text me?" Yeah, I understand the vernacular that we sometimes call things texts when they aren't texts. But you're a journalist, and your job is to be very exact. They weren't war plans, and they weren't via text. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. Doesn't that ring very differently if they had been the original headline? Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal versus the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. So that is what it's now calling. It's now calling it the attack plans, because guess what? Now that everything has been published, it turns out that no war plans were shared. There were no war plans that were shared. And this is where I want to get into JD Vance. You can't make this up, folks. Oh, sorry. I'm jumping ahead here. Jeffrey Goldberg, the rabidly anti-Trump hack masquerading as a journalist at The Atlantic, has once again exposed himself as a shameless peddler of lies and hoaxes. This is one of the responses. Full Signal text chain has been released. There's nothing in it but the pros and cons of striking now versus waiting a month. It's not war plans. It's not classified info. It's a conversation, and nice to see cabinet members and staffers hashing out the best way to move forward. It was a conversation about the pros and cons of a possible strike. No plans, nothing. Just let's hash this out. And then Taylor Butterwick from the Trump 47 response said, "The Atlantic has already abandoned their BS war plans narrative, and in releasing the full chat, they conceded they lied to perpetuate yet another hoax on the American people. What scumbags." And then he put the new headline that I just read to you. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors showed on Signal. This is where JD Vance went and dug even deeper into the article, put egg on their face, and shows that, look, this guy has a law degree. He knows how to come and debate and come with a stack of receipts. This is not a Kamala Harris. This is not a Joe Biden. This is not an Obama. Okay, this is President Trump, a master negotiator, and JD Vance, obviously a very smart and masterful, not just former legislator, but also former attorney, solicitor in other countries, lawyer, doctor of the law. This is what he said. It's very clear Goldberg oversold what he said, but one thing in particular really stands out. Remember when he was attacking Ratcliffe for blowing the cover for a CIA agent? Turns out Ratcliffe was simply naming his chief of staff. See, this is why I like JD Vance. I'm not saying I'm endorsing him for 2028. It's not emotional, or it's not purely emotional, because we're all emotional beings. But he brings the receipts. No one else was going into that article and attacking things this specific, but he did. He came out with the receipts saying, "Oh yeah, and this article, which was saying that a CIA person was being named, turned out that it was just Ratcliffe naming his chief of staff." This is the type of smart think that we need a commander-in-chief or a commander-in-chief in the wings to have. A person who masters the details that are important and shows that they know how to go after the deep state and the propaganda. And you do it with facts, because facts will not blow up in your face. Okay, let's get to the latest, folks. This drama isn't over. You can't make this up. The far-left watchdog group American Oversight has filed a lawsuit targeting some of President Trump's most loyal warriors, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and DNI Tulsi Gabbard. What was their crime? What was their crime? Using the double encrypted messaging app Signal to communicate about military operations. You see how quickly this all moved. It moved so quickly that you know that this was all a plan. This was all by design. We still don't know exactly. Mike Waltz has taken, he has not passed the buck. He has said he built the group. It is his responsibility why JG was on there. And it sounds like possibly he thought another person was being added to the group, but the JG was obviously Jeffrey Goldberg, and he said his staffers didn't do it. Was this some sort of hack? I don't think we're very clear on that yet. But Mike Waltz saying, "Hey, look, I'm not passing the buck on this. This is my fault. I created the group. I added him, and supposedly JG was supposed to be somebody else, and it could be that the name was here, but the contact information, like." People, I've seen funny videos where people save, not funny, but you'll know what I mean here in a second. People who have, they're having affairs and they save the name of their paramour, of their lover, as something else, like the mailman or mom or something crazy. So that's what may have happened here. We don't know that Mike Waltz added Jeffrey Goldberg accidentally because someone put Jeffrey Goldberg's contact information under another contact. But Mike Waltz isn't passing the buck. He's taking responsibility for it. Very, very important. Very, very different from the narcissists and sociopaths we see on the left, who it's always blame, 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 never anyone's fault. So now we have this giant lawsuit. And you can't make this up, folks. Who do you think got the case? Who do you think got the case? The Obama-appointed Judge Boasberg has been assigned to the Signal Chat lawsuit involving Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz. How does that happen? How does that happen? Aren't these supposed to be randomly assigned so that you can't shop judges? How is it Boasberg, who is in a secret society with both Ketanji Brown Jackson and Chief Justice Roberts, who has been fighting for Tren de Aragua and foreign terrorists on our soil, trying to stop President Trump? How is it that he, of all the judges that this could have gone to, he gets this case? Does it seem like by accident, or does it seem like maybe, just maybe, as Steve Bannon has behind him, there are no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences? How does he get that? Of all the judges, how is it that Boasberg gets the hottest case lawsuit coming out of one of the biggest stories right now, SignalGate? Isn't that interesting? But National Security Advisor Mike Waltz broke the silence on the Signal chat leak and said, I take full responsibility. I built the group. That's what he says. And he says, well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible. I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated. I don't mean to be a pedantic here, but how did the number get into the chat? Have you ever had somebody else's contact that shows their name and then you have somebody else's number in there? That is what he said to Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham says, I never make those mistakes. And Mike Wall says, yeah, I didn't see him in this group because I thought it was somebody else. Now, whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical means is something we're trying to figure out. It probably is CIA or someone in the intelligence community who did that so that they can make the SignalGate and then they can try to force Mike Waltz out of his position. But President Trump has said that Mike doesn't need to apologize, that he has his back, and that this is all going to blow over. And indeed it has. No war plans were shared. No war plans were shared. Oh, by the way, back in 2017, the Atlantic praised Signal app. Do you want to know what they called, what the Atlantic called Signal back in 2017? Do you want to know what they called it? They called it the gold standard. They called it the gold standard. Looking at it right here. I was looking at it here. They call it the gold standard. Totally predictable. Oh, and also the Atlantic not only praised Signal app for being Signal, the gold standard of encrypted messaging and calling. This is from February 15th, 2017. It was used by staffers who worked for President Trump, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton. And Senator Mark Warner used the Signal app to meet with Christopher Steele to obtain the Steele dossier. So Elon proved our government is riddled with fraud and corruption. Robert Hur proved Joe Biden lied about holding his classified documents. Congress proved Biden took bribes from China, Ukraine, and Romania. White House staff, we now know, actually made Biden's national security decisions, but the Democrats are doubling down on SignalGate, on an app that is approved by the intelligence agency. No protocol was broken in setting up and using Signal. Obama used Signal. The Atlantic called Signal the gold standard in apps, in encryption apps. But now they're trying to put egg on the face of President Trump. And then we have this American Oversight filing a lawsuit saying that Tulsi Gabbard, Hegseth, and Ratcliffe try to use their Signal app in violation of Federal Records Act. Yet this app is already approved at every level of government for staff to use to communicate. Absolutely incredible. All right, I want to end with this last great story about JD Vance, our duly elected and doing a great job. Can't quite call him beloved yet. Our vice president. Now, we know that Usha Vance was supposed to go to Greenland to watch the dog event over there. And we had the Greenland Prime Minister and others saying that she shouldn't be there, that she wasn't welcome. Well, this is what we got from JD Vance, our vice president. Usha is not going to be going to that event. That has been called off. And they messed around, and this is what they're getting. I think this is actually a better thing that's happening. And we're going to end with this, JD Vance.
Hey guys, it's JD Vance, the vice president. And there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself. And so I'm going to join her. I'm going to visit some of our guardians in the Space Force on the northwest coast of Greenland and also just check out what's going on with the security there of Greenland. As you know, it's really important. A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there. And I say that speaking for President Trump, we want to reinvigorate the security of the people of Greenland because we think it's important to protecting the security of the entire world. Unfortunately, leaders in both America and in Denmark, I think, ignored Greenland for far too long. That's been bad for Greenland. It's also been bad for the security of the entire world. We think we can take things in a different direction. So I'm going to go check it out.
Calls off a cultural visit by Usha and says she's having all the fun. I'm going to join her. And then going to check out the Space Force base there. And then the topic that's brought up is the security. So instead of it being a cultural visit by Usha, it's now a state visit to once again bring to the forefront, not just the Greenland and the world, how, as far as national security is concerned, how vital Greenland is. So instead of getting a cultural visit that was soft diplomacy, they're getting hardcore diplomacy from JD Vance. He is quickly being groomed to be able to take on the mantle of POTUS if and when necessary. What are your thoughts? Put it down below. Big hug to all of y'all. Want to give a shout out to our BCP fan club members. Once again, Shadow Ops RC, welcome to the BCP fan club. Gina Curcio, Ryan Lollipop, appreciate you guys being out there in the chat verse. And a big shout out to the rest of you. Big hug. And CC Bingham, who says they set up their journalists. He was hacking in on conversations and didn't know who it was until now. Yeah, the gold standard. And I saw someone else made this comment. Also, big job, Ford. Thank you for being here. The truth is that we know that Signal is very good, but it does, like always, they have some backdoors in there, and they backdoored him in there. I'm sure that Team Trump is on it and may not release everything they know, because maybe behind the scenes they were punishing and getting the people responsible for all of this. But in the end, I think we will prevail. All right, folks, a lot of things in the hopper, a lot of things developing. I'll get that to you in the next couple hours. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button before you exit. Hit the notification button. And please don't forget to check out episode 575, where we talk about the jab. We talk about the new CDC director. We talk about another Jesse Smollett hoax. And we talk about how there's one state that is being caught red-handed with, let's just say, dishonest elections. And going into 2026, we need to be aware that these things are still going on. BCPextras.com and therealBCP.com. Let me catch my breath. Let me drink some water, and I'll be back in a little bit with more reporting. Ciao, goodbye. Love y'all. Big hug. God bless.